Hey everyone, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel here, and here we are approaching the August long weekend here, and not more perfect time to have Stanley Cup Playoffs begin here, just as we thought. It's traditional, right? These are definitely untraditional times here, but in this video I decided that I'm going to do my playoff predictions here, including the round robin, all the playing, and all the way to the Stanley Cup champion here. But this, I'm going to call it my pre-bracket video here, as NHL.com says they're not going to release their bracket for their contest until after the qualifying, the play-in series are done here. So I'll make a separate video when that comes out here. I'll make my picks and share my selections and predictions in that video here. But I figure, why don't I just do the whole thing, the whole kit caboodle, with the round robin and the play-in here, and then see how I compare how I feel where the teams are right now here. So I'll bring up the notes here, and we'll keep in mind that in this year's playoffs here, not only we have 24 teams round robin, but it's also all reseeded after the play-in series and the first round here. So definitely matchups could change here, and that's where we definitely could see a big comparison difference between this video and the bracket video when the NHL releases their bracket after the qualifiers here. So first, let's take a look at the Eastern Conference round robin here, as the top 4 teams in the regular season, based on points percentage in this case here, we're all given at least a bye into the first round here, but they're all going to play each other once here in a round robin, so at least they'll get 3 games in, as the other teams will get other 3 to 5 games in based on the play-in series here. So everyone's got something to play for here. So this is all based on seeding for the official tournament here. Well, in first place here, I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Lightning will get first in the round robin here. So I feel that this year the Tampa Bay Lightning definitely have a lot more to play for after, falling in the first round last year and falling short to the Stanley Cup or in the Conference Championship the last few years here. And then second place, I actually will give that to the Boston Bruins here, as they still have an aging core here, but they still have a team that could potentially go all the way. Plus, they did win the President's Trophy in the regular season here. And third place here, I'm going to give it to the Philadelphia Flyers here, as they appear to be an up-and-coming team there with Carter Hart here. And then number 4, I'll give it to the Washington Capitals here. I mean, they still got Ovi, but they still have maybe some question marks on where they're going to go in net there. So I got Tampa Bay number 1, Boston number 2, Philadelphia number 3, and Washington number 4 here. And when it comes to the regular season coming in here, Tampa Bay and Boston, I actually have them swapping 1 to 2 here. And then I have Philadelphia, Washington swapping here. So that's how I figure my prediction for the round robin is going to play out for the Eastern Conference here. So going out west here, I have the St. Louis Blues finishing first in the round robin, followed by Colorado number 2. And then I got Vegas number 3 and Dallas number 4 here. And I figure that St. Louis is still the most complete team, and definitely look like they still have what it takes to potentially defend as Stanley Cup champions here. And the fact that with this layoff here, given how things have played out here, might actually benefit them, so they won't run out of gas going on a nice long run again. Colorado looks like they're a team on the rise here. So that's why I got number 2. Vegas, I still feel they're a complete team, considering this is only their 3rd season in the NHL after all here. In Dallas, they still have strong goaltending with Ben Bishop here. And actually from the regular season, there's actually no changes here. So I got St. Louis number 1, Colorado number 2, Vegas number 3, and Dallas number 4 here. So those are my round robin predictions here. So all these games are going to happen with the play in the round robin around the same time. So no one's going to really be sitting around waiting here, but I have those teams seated right now. So now let's take a look at the play-in series, starting with the Eastern Conference here, where you got the 5-12 matchup here, where you got the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Montreal Canadiens here. And I definitely don't see any scenario where 12 is going to beat number 5 here. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins will beat the Montreal Canadiens in 4 games here. Keep in mind all these series are a best of 5 here, so you need to win 3 to come up top in the series here. I think Pittsburgh is just too good, especially with Crosby, Malkin, Gensel should be back here, and then they still have to decide between Jarry or Murray in net here. I mean, Carey Price definitely has the edge in this series when it comes to goaltending. That's pretty much about it for Montreal. I think Pittsburgh has too much firepower, so I'd like Pittsburgh to get out in 4 games here. So now let's move on to the 6-11 matchup here, where we got the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers here. I'm going to find this one to be very interesting here, as I could see this one being a very close series here, but the New York Rangers actually have Carolina's number here in the regular season here. And I mean, despite Carolina having a strong defensive core here, I think goaltending definitely could go to New York Rangers here. As also they got Antti Panarin for the New York Rangers. And I actually would like the New York Rangers, the number 11 seed, pulling off the upset over the Carolina Hurricanes, number 6 seed. I think we're going to need all 5 games here, but I got the New York Rangers beating the Carolina Hurricanes in this scenario here, but we're going to need all 5 games here. So that could be my first upset pick here. So in the next matchup here for the 7-10 here, I got the other New York team, the New York Islanders, taking on the Florida Panthers here, and I find this one a little tricky to predict here, as I could see that series also go either way here. I mean, the Florida Panthers definitely have younger forwards, with Barkov and Huberdeau there. However, the New York Islanders, they seem to always been playing well, strong defensively here. And they're Barry Trotz here. I mean, Sergei Bobrovsky is still a big question mark for the Florida Panthers here. But I think I'll give the New York Islanders the edge, and they'll take this one in 5 games. We're going to need all 5 games for that series here. So I got actually both New York teams advancing into the first round of the playoffs here. And then the last series here, you got the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets here for the 8-9 here. This is another one that could go either way here and be a tight, hard to predict series here, but I'm going to give the edge to the Toronto Maple Leafs, as they definitely got a lot more offense up front there. I know the Columbus Blue Jackets definitely have dealt with injuries all season here, but they've been able to keep plugging along here, and they've been healing up here during the pause here. But I think with Marner and Matthews for sure up front there, and then Tavares, I still think Toronto has what it takes to overpower the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I'm going to give the Toronto Maple Leafs the win here in 4 games here. So I got Pittsburgh, the New York Rangers, New York Islanders, and the Toronto Maple Leafs all advancing in the respective play-in series here. And we'll get back to who plays who in the first round after my round-robin predictions here. So going out west here, the first matchup here, I got the 5-12. I got the Edmonton Oilers and the Chicago Blackhawks here, and I definitely do not see a scenario where there'll be an upset here. So I think the Edmonton Oilers, I'm going to give the Edmonton Oilers a sweep here. I think they'll take care of the Chicago Blackhawks in 3 games here. I mean, it's definitely going to be fun to see McDavid and Draisaitl, still the young duo that the Edmonton Oilers have, versus Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews here when it comes to the experience. And I know Chicago still has a lot of core players from their multiple Stanley Cups of Kane and Toews there, but there's still question marks in that. You could say that for both teams here, but I definitely have more confidence just on McDavid and Draisaitl alone that can carry the Edmonton Oilers in a best-of-5 series against Chicago Blackhawks. So I think Edmonton's going to sweep Chicago here. So the 6-11 matchup here, you got the Nashville Predators and the Arizona Coyotes here. This one's a very tricky one to pick out here, because Nashville definitely is very strong defensively here, and they've been based on their play on that, especially led by Rowan Josi, obviously one of the top defensemen on their team here. However, the Arizona Coyotes, they also have been playing very strong defensively too under Rick Talker here, but you'd think, maybe Arizona could have a little more of an edge when it comes to offense if Phil Kessel and Taylor Hall show up, and then you got Darcy Kemper in net for the Arizona Coyotes, and definitely Arizona failed off with his injury there. Well, I mean, Nashville, you don't know if it's going to be Pekka or UC Saros here, but they're probably going to go with the experience in Pekka here. But despite with that being said here, I like the Nashville Predators to squeeze one out against the Arizona Coyotes. They're going to need all 5 games here, so I got Nashville advancing in 5 games here. So the 7-10 matchup here, I got the Vancouver Canucks and the Minnesota Wild here. I mean, the Minnesota Wild, they're just a mediocre middling of the pack team here, while Vancouver, I actually like the Vancouver in the young core, with Pedersen obviously, and Besser, and Quinn Hughes, and then you get Markstrom in net there. I think all that alone here would be enough for the Vancouver Canucks to outlast the Minnesota Wild here. So in this series, I got the Vancouver Canucks advancing in 4 games here. And then the last series here, well, I previewed it more in depth with the Calgary Flames and the Winnipeg Jets in my Calgary Flames and Stanley Cup Playoffs preview there. And this is definitely a matchup that I think is going to be close. It's a good matchup for both sides for the 8-9 seed here. I mean, I did mention in that video here that despite the fact that Winnipeg has an edge in goaltending with Connor Hellebuyck here, the offense, if Calgary's offense can show up here, and I think they will, after trying to shave off some playoff demons from last year and a couple of years here ago. But I think this series will also need all 5 games. So I have the Calgary Flames, and I did say in that video, winning this one in 5 games here. So advancing out of the playing series in the Western Conference, I got Edmonton, Nashville, Vancouver, and Calgary here, which basically was all the higher seeds here. So that's the playing series here. So now we'll go into round 1 of the Eastern Conference here after the round robin here is set up here. So here's how the matchups now work out in the Eastern Conference here after the round robin and the playing series here. Now you got Tampa Bay, who has the 1 seed, will take on the New York Rangers in 11 seed here. These two teams seem to be very connected here, as they always seem to have a nice rivalry. They've had some playoff history. They both seem to share some resources here. They've had John Tortorella one time, Ryan Callahan, Martin St. Louis here. However, I think the Tampa Bay Lightning will end the Cinderella run for New York Rangers here, and now we're in the best of 7s here. I like the Tampa Bay Lightning to finish off the New York Rangers in this case in 5 games here, because I think Tampa Bay is on a mission here. Steven Stamkos is definitely on a mission to show that he could show up in the big games here, and this how Tampa Bay in general, how they need to ride off their playoff demons themselves here. So I like Tampa Bay over the New York Rangers here. Now if you're following along here, Leaf Nation, if you looked at the seeding here, you'd be taking on the Boston Bruins yet again in the first round here. So are we going to start hearing Boston fans rubbing their hands in anticipation, oh glee, and Toronto Maple Leaf fans moaning and not again? However, we've gone to this well too many times for the Boston Bruins here, and I like the Boston Bruins makeup here. However, their core is getting older here, and I think eventually it's got to have to favor the way for the Toronto Maple Leafs with their young core here. So I'm going to have the Toronto Maple Leafs, the 8th seed, actually beating the Boston Bruins, the number 2 seed, but they're going to need all 7 games in a nice classic series here. So I actually got the Toronto Maple Leafs advancing out of the first round against the Boston Bruins in this scenario here. I'm going to say another similar situation I can think of is, Vancouver finally beating Chicago in 2011 there, or a couple years ago when Washington finally beat the Pittsburgh Penguins there when Washington eventually went on to win their Stanley Cup here. So I got Toronto advancing in this case. You got to figure there might be some upsets here. So in the next series here, I got the number 3 seeded Philadelphia Flyers taking on the number 7 seeded New York Islanders here. Well, I think the Philadelphia Flyers are one team that's poised to go on a nice long run here. I mean, we got Giroux and for sure that leading the way, and also the fact you got Carter Hart in net here seems to be around a form here that Philadelphia finally has a goaltender here. In this case here, I'm going to give the Philadelphia Flyers the edge, and they'll knock off the New York Islanders in 5 games here. And then the last series here, well, how's this fitting? You got the number 5 Pittsburgh Penguins taking on the number 4 Washington Capitals here. As I just briefly mentioned with Boston, Toronto, Pittsburgh, Washington, they seem to have to go together like yin and yang or spaghetti and meatballs or peanut butter and jelly here. Well, I think this will definitely be another classic series in the rivalry here, and I know thankfully Washington won the Stanley Cup a couple years ago for Alexander Ovechkin at a ring here. However, I think Pittsburgh is definitely still more complete here, and they still potentially have another run with Crosby and Malkin here. So I like Pittsburgh to win this one over Washington in 7 games in the first round here. So to recap here, I got Tampa Bay, Toronto, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh advancing in the round one after the round robin on how the matches play out here. So that's the Eastern Conference here. So we'll reseed it after when I get back to round 2 for the Eastern Conference. Now going out west here, you got the St. Louis Blues. In this case, they would be taking on the Calgary Flames, the number 8 seed here. And this is where I would say, as a Flames fan, I think the run will end for the Calgary Flames again, because I think the St. Louis Blues they're too stacked right now. Especially if Vladimir Tarasenko is supposed to be back here. That's what St. Louis needs to get even better here. But St. Louis still looks like a team that's poised to potentially go on and win the Stanley Cup again. While the Calgary Flames, we still have a few question marks, but I think we're not good enough to take on the class of the Western Conference at this stage right now, and after probably a rough series with the Winnipeg Jets here. So I think the St. Louis Blues would knock off the Calgary Flames in 5 games in this case here. And now the next matchup here, you got the Colorado Avalanche, the 2nd seed, taking on the 7th seed, the Vancouver Canucks here. I think that would definitely be a fun series, especially with Nathan MacKinnon leading the way, and you can see still 2 fairly young offenses going at it here, but I think Colorado is very, very stacked here, even though they might have some question marks in net here. But I think Colorado has enough firepower here, so I think Colorado will take out the Vancouver Canucks in 5 games as well here. And then the next series here, this will definitely be an interesting matchup because Vegas will see someone else for the first time in the playoffs here. The number 3 seed Vegas taking on, in this case, would be the number 6 seed in the Nashville Predators here. I think this definitely could be a complete series for both teams here, but I think Vegas is definitely well more balanced with goaltending, forwards, and defense here. I would give this one to Vegas, and I think it'll take 6 games. I think this will definitely be an interesting series, a couple overtime games here. And then the last series here will definitely, an all rivalry here. You got the Edmonton Oilers, number 5 seed, taking on the number 4 seed in the Dallas Stars here, and I know Edmonton and Dallas definitely have had some great playoff series, especially in the late 1990s here. Well, I think this will definitely be a great series overall here, and I actually think the Edmonton Oilers run will continue on here. I think we'll have another classic Oil rivalry series between Alberta and Texas here, as I think the Edmonton Oilers will pull off the slight upset and knock off the Dallas Stars in 7 games here, because I think Connor McDavid definitely is zoned in, and just on him alone I think would be enough for him to get them out of the first round here. So to recap, in the Western Conference here, I got St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, and Edmonton. Moving on here. So now let's go back into the Eastern Conference here for round 2 here, as everything's going to get reseeded once again here. So in this case here, I got the Tampa Bay Lightning taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs as the 1-8 here, and I think this is where Canada's run will end in the Eastern Conference here, as I think Tampa Bay once again, they just have too much depth here, and I think the Toronto Maple Leafs are not quite there yet. And then maybe they might be extra drained from finally winning that series against the Boston Bruins, but I'd like the Tampa Bay Lightning to knock off the Toronto Maple Leafs in 6 games here. And then the other series here, this will definitely be a dandy, the Battle of Pennsylvania here, as you got the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins here. And this one, it has to go to 7 games for sure here, but I'll give this slight edge to the Orange Crush. I think the Philadelphia Flyers, as I think they're a younger team up and coming here, and Claude Giroux will get some bragging rights over Sidney Crosby here. So I have Philadelphia winning this one in 7 games over the Pittsburgh Penguins here. So Toronto and Philadelphia, as I like to say, will pack up and move shop and go to Edmonton here for the Conference Championships, as that's how it's going to work here, as Toronto's the hub city for the Eastern Conference up until the end of the second round, and then Edmonton's going to host the remaining of the playoffs here. So now in the Western Conference second round here, you got the St. Louis Blues taking on the Edmonton Oilers for the 1-5 here. And I think the Edmonton Oilers could still put on a nice run here with the St. Louis Blues, but I think the St. Louis Blues are definitely a lot more in depth here. Especially, I think they definitely got the edge in goaltending here. You got to still wonder how long could they go to the well with Mikko Koskinen and Mike Smith here. But I have the St. Louis Blues beating the Edmonton Oilers in 6 games here and in the second round here. And then the other series here, the 2-3, you got Colorado and Vegas here. Another new matchup here, and definitely would look forward to seeing them face off in a 7-game series here. I think there definitely could be some overtime games here. However, I think the Colorado Avalanche definitely has a little more firepower up front here that they can knock off the Vegas Golden Knights in 7 games here. So I got St. Louis and Colorado advancing in the Western Conference here. So here's our Final Four, all in Edmonton here, as you got the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Philadelphia Flyers. They're going to meet each other once again for the Eastern Conference title, just like back in 2004 that they did. And just like in 2004, I think the Tampa Bay Lightning will outlast the Philadelphia Flyers, but it will only take 6 games in this case. So I got the Tampa Bay Lightning beating the Philadelphia Flyers to get into the Stanley Cup Finals. And then Colorado and St. Louis, they definitely have had some nice battles like a generation ago here. However, I'd like the Colorado Avalanche to get the edge on the St. Louis Blues here, as I feel like Colorado is the team that I think is up and coming here. So I'd like the Colorado Avalanche to beat the St. Louis Blues in 6 games here. So that will set up the Stanley Cup Final, as that was my early pick that I had Tampa Bay and Colorado a couple months ago when we were talking about this proposed 2014 playoff here. So I'm going to still stick with that I got Tampa Bay and Colorado meeting each other in the Stanley Cup Final here. Let's just say these two teams are closely matched up here. Both have strong facets here. But let's just say the Tampa Bay Lightning will win this one in 7 games here. And as much as Tampa Bay is one of the teams that I put lower on, teams I don't like the much here, especially after June 2004 here. But in this case here, I actually wouldn't mind Steven Stamkos, seeing him get a Stanley Cup ring here, and that's who my pick would be to win the Conn Smythe Trophy here. So these are my Stanley Cup playoff predictions here, pre-bracket here, as I included talking about the round robin and how the play-in series goes on here. I'll make another video when the NHL.com releases the official bracket here and make my picks here after when those matchups are set up here. I definitely can compare. Would I still like Tampa Bay and Colorado to meet in the Stanley Cup once we know the matchups after the play-in series here? Because, whenever I'm against reseeded here, and potentially maybe some upsets that could happen, or still could happen in actual life here, it definitely could readjust my predictions here, but this is all the fun of it here. And I just say to you out there, who do you like, in these series, and who do you ultimately think will go on and win the Stanley Cup, and who else could you see potentially pull off an upset here? I mean, do you think Montreal could beat Pittsburgh, or Chicago beat Edmonton? Could this be a year that, a team from out of nowhere could make it to the finals and win it? I mean, it's definitely, everyone's in the same boat here in terms of having the same layoff here and getting healthier here. I mean, of course, I put these picks out here, and based on the early consensus here, a lot of analysts think the same thing I'm thinking, that they like Tampa Bay and Colorado to meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I guess that means that's not going to happen, but you never know. But I just want to ask you, and of course, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey, home the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, to mostly talk Calgary sports on this channel here, and as a hockey fan, I feel inclined to make my playoff predictions here, and I'll do it before the bracket. And I also do personal vlogs, attempt to comedy, and I also do share my experiences. Let's say I'm on the road or at a sporting event here. So if it sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, do follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey. You know what you need to do here, and definitely was an extra longer playoff prediction here because you got 24 teams battling out for the Stanley Cup, and the fact you got more moving parts with the round robin, the play-in series here, and then reseeding everybody after every round here, which I prefer this conference format a lot more. I can see why the networks and marketing don't like it as much, because you have a little more certainty knowing that who you play after the first round here, and maybe cut down travel here. But with everybody in the hub city here, you could do the conference format here, but I just feel it disperses out the potential talent to defer it later in the playoffs as opposed to potentially playing them earlier. But the one YouTuber I watch, the hockey guy, he does this every year where he looks at the divisional format and the conference format, and usually more often than not, it always works out the 3 or 4 series works out to be the same. But that's the debate here. But I just think it's no different with the conference format or divisional format, that down the stretch there you could still have a couple games left and you're thinking, gee, we could still potentially prepare for 4 or 5 teams. If these dominoes fall, if we do this, we could be playing this team, that. So that's just kind of funny here, but it's definitely the extra element given these very unique circumstances here, because, approaching the August long weekend, and man, we're thinking about the playoffs beginning. Usually in the August long weekend, it's really the dog days where the draft's already been done, Stanley's already been awarded, and we're in the dog days of free agent frenzy and just waiting for training camp to begin here. But so as I say here, I'll see you in the next video, and I just want to welcome your predictions on everything. And who do you think is ultimately going to win the Stanley Cup, including, you know, all the round robin stuff? And I'll plan to make my video for the bracket when the NHL releases their bracket for their contest here. So I'll see you then.